The myth of the rocket-powered war elephant, a legend born from fire, fear, and the genius of forgotten warriors. In the dusty pages of military history, one bizarre claim still echoes tales of elephants fitted with rockets, storming through battlefields like living war machines. But did such beasts ever exist? Or is this one of history's most explosive myths? The strange legend of the rocket-powered war elephant didn't appear in ancient chronicles. It emerged centuries later, woven from fragments of truth. Historians tracing its roots found connections to South India's 18th century Mysorean rockets, invented under Tipu Sultan. These weapons were so advanced they terrified the British. Over time, storytellers may have merged two real elements of Indian warfare, rockets and war elephants, into a single fantastical image. But what did the Mysorean army actually use? And how far did their rocketry truly go? By the 1780s, the Mysorean army had mastered an early form of metal cylinder rockets, centuries before Europe caught up. These weren't toys. They could fly up to 2 kilometers and pierce through wooden defenses. British troops facing them described the terrifying hissing serpents that streaked across the sky. The rockets' metal tubes allowed greater pressure and distance, making them the world's first militarily effective rockets. But these weapons were carried by men, not elephants. The association would only come much later, twisted by imagination and exotic tales from colonial writers. Tipu Sultan, ruler of Mysore, was obsessed with military innovation. Between 1782 and 1799, he refined his father's rocket designs into devastating war tools. His engineers developed launchers, lightweight rockets, and even cluster volleys. These advances earned him the title, the Tiger of Mysore. Yet despite his fascination with technology, there's zero record of Tipu strapping rockets to elephants. He used them strategically in infantry assaults and artillery cover, while elephants served as transport and psychological intimidation. But once British artists heard of fire-spewing Indian weapons, creative exaggeration took over. When British forces encountered Mysorean rockets during the Anglo-Mysore Wars, they were stunned. Soldiers reported a shrill, serpentine screech and fire trails cutting through smoke. Some even described elephants panicking under the noise, adding a wild image to the chaos. European newspapers exaggerated the scenes, suggesting fiery elephants of war. This phrase later morphed into stories of rocket-wielding beasts. The truth? The rockets frightened elephants more than they aided them. But the myth had already taken root, blending fear, misunderstanding, and colonial imagination into one explosive tale. Over the 19th century, European illustrators and early sci-fi writers romanticized exotic warfare. Their imagination turned Indian elephants into monstrous war machines, often equipped with impossible weapons. By the time these images reached Western audiences, they were accepted as lost Eastern technologies. The rocket elephant became symbolic of India's mystical weaponry, a blend of fascination and misunderstanding. In truth, no archaeological evidence or battle record ever mentions elephants launching rockets, only their use in conventional warfare and transport. Before myths took over, elephants were already terrifying battlefield forces. Used from India to Carthage, they acted like ancient tanks trampling infantry and breaking formations. Armies trained them to carry towers, archers, and even small cannons, yet their biggest weakness was fear. Loud noises and fire could easily send them rampaging back into friendly lines. So, the idea of attaching rockets to such sensitive animals would have been tactically suicidal. The concept simply didn't fit the reality of elephant warfare. It's easy to forget that India's Mysorean rockets were a true scientific breakthrough. They used iron casings centuries before the West, inspiring later rocket pioneers like William Congreve. After capturing Tipu Sultan's arsenals, the British reverse-engineered the weapons, leading directly to the Congreve rockets used in Europe and even the War of 1812. The real story isn't about elephants, it's about how a South Asian innovation shaped the global future of rocketry. Once Britain absorbed Mysore's technology, they also exported its stories. Colonial illustrators, seeking to sell exotic tales, depicted India as a land of fire-breathing beasts and mad kings. Rocket elephants fit perfectly into that fantasy. These images reappeared in adventure novels, children's books, and early encyclopedias, blending real inventions with Orientalist spectacle. The line between historical record and artistic license blurred. The myth of the rocket elephant was born not from war, but from Western wonder and exaggeration. Modern researchers searching Tipu Sultan's archives found detailed rocket manuals, battle reports, and weapon lists, but not a single mention of elephants equipped with rockets. Archaeological digs unearthed rocket fragments, launch pipes, and casings, all designed for infantry. Even in war paintings from Mysore, elephants are shown carrying flags, cannons, or supplies, never fire weapons. The myth persists only through outsider retellings, proving how history can mutate when filtered through imagination. So how did the rocket elephant rumor start? Likely from British officers describing rockets launched from behind elephants, not by them. Elephants often carried heavy supplies or provided mobile shields during battle. When soldiers saw rockets flying from nearby positions, it wasn't hard for rumors to twist that image. In retellings, rockets behind elephants became rockets on elephants. Small linguistic shifts can ignite centuries of misinformation, just like a spark turning into fire. By the 20th century, rocket elephants had entered pulp fiction, comic art, and even online memes. They symbolized wild inventions from forgotten ages. But while pop culture loved the absurdity, historians kept pointing out the disconnect between fact and fantasy. What began as a mix-up evolved into an enduring techno-myth, proof of how human imagination reshapes truth for spectacle. The rocket elephant myth endures because it's irresistible, a blend of ancient strength and futuristic technology. It plays into our fascination with lost inventions and secret civilizations. And in an era when rockets symbolized power, attaching them to elephants, nature's own war machines, created a perfect fantasy. These stories remind us that myth often grows where records are scarce and imaginations are rich. The real hero of this story remains Tipu Sultan's engineers, who turned humble gunpowder tubes into precision weapons. Their innovations pushed rocketry forward centuries ahead of their time. Without them, Europe might have taken far longer to develop the technology that eventually reached space. Ironically, the myth overshadows the true brilliance of these inventors, the people who lit humanity's first controlled rockets. When Tipu Sultan fell to the British in 1799, thousands of rockets were seized. These captured weapons directly inspired Europe's next leap in warfare. In a twist of fate, the mythic image of rocket elephants may have faded, but Tipu's real rockets lived on in military evolution, influencing everything from naval battles to fireworks. His defeat marked the end of Mysore's independence, but the beginning of a global rocket age. Ancient warfare often relied on spectacle. The sight of flaming arrows, catapults, or rockets wasn't just destruction, it was psychological warfare. So, the myth of elephants spewing fire actually reflects an ancient truth. Armies always sought to terrify. A flaming elephant, real or imagined, symbolized chaos. The story's endurance shows how humans use myth to explain fear, confusion, and awe in battle. Today, fragments of Tipu Sultan's rockets survive in museums in London, Hyderabad, and Mysore. Each twisted metal tube tells a story of forgotten brilliance. Modern tests confirm their aerodynamic design and surprising power. These relics show that while the rocket elephant never existed, the technology behind the legend certainly did real science that blazed centuries before its time. The myth of the rocket-powered elephant reminds us how easily truth and storytelling intertwine. Myths preserve curiosity, even when they distort facts. Behind the fantasy lies something real: innovation, courage, and the human desire to create weapons beyond imagination. In that way, myths often carry the emotional truth of an era, even when the physical truth is missing. Interestingly, modern military designers revisit old legends for inspiration. Concepts like drone swarms or robotic war animals echo the same imagination that once dreamed of rocket elephants. What was once fantasy can inspire real technology centuries later. The myth lives on not as a lie, but as a spark for invention. So no, history never saw a rocket-powered war elephant charge into battle. But the story lives on because it captures something deeper: our urge to merge nature and technology, strength and fire, myth and science. If legends like this can survive centuries, imagine what truths still hide beneath the smoke of forgotten wars.